The gentle sunset cast long shadows across the dusty streets of Silverton Creek when Zara Lockhart stood at the altar in a white gown that suddenly felt more like a prison than a promise. The assembled townsfolk gasped as she turned and fled, hiking up her skirts and running from the church, tears blurring her vision as she abandoned her groom, a man 30 years her senior with cold eyes and calloused hands that had never once touched her with tenderness. Silverton Creek, Colorado Territory, 1873, was not a place where a woman of 22 could easily make her own way. But Zara had reached her breaking point. Her father's gambling debts had sealed her fate, traded like cattle to Harold Blackstone, the town's wealthiest merchant who had been widowed 3 times over. "Zara, get back here, girl." Her father's voice thundered behind her, but she didn't slow down. Her boots kicked up dust as she ran through the town, past stunned onlookers, her veil trailing behind her like a flag of surrender that she refused to wave. The Donovan Ranch lay just beyond the edge of town. Zara had no plan beyond escape, but her feet carried her there instinctively. The barn stood tall against the darkening sky, its doors slightly ajar as if inviting her in. She slipped inside, the familiar smell of hay and horses a momentary comfort as she gasped for breath. Frantic, she climbed the wooden ladder to the loft, her wedding dress catching on the rungs. By the time she reached the top, she had torn a substantial rip in the lace her mother had spent months sewing. The thought only made her cry harder as she collapsed into a heap among the sweet-smelling hay, her shoulders shaking with each sob. "They'll find me," she whispered to herself, knowing that a woman who fled her wedding would have nowhere to hide in a town the size of Silverton Creek. Her father would drag her back, or worse, Blackstone would send his men to claim what he now considered his property. The thought made her stomach turn. Down below, the barn door creaked open wider. Zara froze, holding her breath, pressing herself flat against the loft floor. "Hello, anyone in here?" The voice was deep, unfamiliar. Zara remained silent, but a treacherous sob escaped her lips. "I know someone's up there," the voice called. "I'm coming up." Boots on the ladder rungs. Slow, deliberate steps. Zara scrambled backward, looking frantically for somewhere to hide, but the loft offered no shelter beyond the scattered hay bales. A head appeared at the top of the ladder, then broad shoulders. A man pulled himself into the loft with fluid grace that belied his size. He wore a worn leather vest over a cotton shirt, dusty from the trail, and a hat that shadowed his face until he pushed it back with one finger. "Well now," he said softly, taking in the sight of her tear-stained face and torn wedding dress. "You don't look like you're having the happiest day of your life." "Please," Zara whispered, backing away until she hit the wall of the loft. "Please just leave me be." He stayed by the ladder, making no move to come closer. "This is my family's barn, miss. I reckon that gives me some right to ask why there's a bride hiding in my hayloft. Your family's." Zara blinked through her tears. "You're a Donovan." "Flynn Harding," he corrected, touching the brim of his hat. "Just bought this place from old man Donovan last month. Haven't had much chance to introduce myself around town yet." His blue eyes studied her with concern. "You're running from something or someone." It wasn't a question, but Zara nodded anyway. "I couldn't do it. I couldn't marry him." Flynn Harding settled himself on a hay bale, keeping a respectful distance. "I take it the fellow isn't devastated by losing the love of his life." Despite everything, Zara let out a choked laugh. "Harold Blackstone doesn't love me. He wants a young wife to bear him sons and keep his house. His last wife died in childbirth 6 months ago." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "My father owes him money. Payment." Flynn's expression darkened. "That's not right." "It's how things are done," Zara said, though the words tasted bitter. "But I just couldn't." "You don't have to explain to me," Flynn said. "No woman should be forced to marry where she doesn't wish to." A commotion outside drew their attention. Voices called Zara's name, angry shouts mixing with concerned queries. "They're looking for me," Zara whispered, panic rising in her throat. Flynn rose to his feet. "Stay here. Don't make a sound." He descended the ladder with the same quiet grace he had climbed it. Zara could hear the barn door open, voices, Flynn's deep tone answering questions. She couldn't make out the words, but the tension in the exchange was clear even from her hiding place. Minutes later, the voices faded. Flynn returned, climbing back up to the loft. "Your father and a rather unpleasant older gentleman are organizing a search party," he said. "I told them I hadn't seen anyone, but they might come back to check the barn more thoroughly." "What am I going to do?" Zara asked, more to herself than to him. Flynn studied her for a long moment. "I have a proposition for you, Miss Lockhart, Zara Lockhart. Miss Lockhart, I need a housekeeper. This place is a mess and I'm not much for cooking or cleaning. You need somewhere to hide. Stay here, work for me, and I'll keep you safe from Blackstone." Zara stared at him. "You would do that for a stranger?" "I've never been one to turn away someone in need," Flynn said simply. "Besides, I meant what I said about needing help. It's just me here, and ranching doesn't leave much time for keeping house." "Why are you alone?" Zara asked. "Most ranchers have hands to help. Just starting out," Flynn explained. "Spent years saving up to buy my own place. Got the land now, but not enough yet for hired help. I'll get there." He smiled, and for the first time Zara noticed the dimple in his right cheek. "So, what do you say?" "It's not much, but it's honest work, and you'll have a roof over your head." Zara considered her options, which were few. Return to her father and marry Harold Blackstone, or accept the help of this stranger who had kind eyes and a gentle voice. "I accept," she said finally. "Thank you, Mr. Harding." "Flynn," he corrected. "If we're going to be living under the same roof, might as well use first names." "Flynn," she repeated, testing the name on her tongue. "Now we need to get you out of that dress and into something less conspicuous," Flynn said, then flushed slightly. "I mean, I have some old clothes that might fit you well enough for now." "Lead the way," Zara said, finding a small smile despite everything. For the first time since her father had announced her engagement 2 weeks ago, she felt a flicker of hope. The ranch house was modest but solid, a 2-room cabin with a stone fireplace and sturdy furniture. Flynn found her a pair of trousers and a shirt that hung loose on her smaller frame, but with the sleeves rolled up and a belt cinched tight, they would do. "You can change in there," Flynn said, pointing to the bedroom. "I'll wait outside." When Zara emerged in the borrowed clothes, her wedding dress bundled under her arm, Flynn nodded approvingly. "Much better for ranch work." "What should I do with this?" Zara asked, holding up the dress. Flynn considered for a moment. "Best burn it. Can't risk anyone finding it if they come searching." Together, they built up the fire in the hearth and fed the white satin and lace into the flames. Zara watched her wedding dress burn, feeling a strange mixture of sorrow and liberation. "That was my mother's handiwork," she said softly. "She'll be heartbroken." "Your mother's alive?" Flynn asked, surprised. "Yes, she didn't approve of the match either, but my father's word is law in our house." "Will she be worried about you?" Zara nodded slowly. "She will, but she'll understand why I ran. She married for love, not obligation. She always wanted the same for me." Flynn stirred the fire, making sure the last of the fabric caught flame. "My parents married for love too, lost them both to fever 5 years ago. They taught me a man should earn a woman's affection, not purchase it." "Your parents sound like good people," Zara said. "They were." Flynn's voice was soft with remembrance. "Best people I ever knew." That night, Flynn insisted Zara take the bed while he made do with a bedroll by the fire. Exhausted by the day's events, she fell into a deep sleep, only to be awakened by the sound of horses approaching just after dawn. "Zara," Flynn's urgent whisper came from the doorway. "Get up. They're coming." She scrambled out of bed, still wearing the borrowed clothes she'd slept in. "What do we do?" "Out the back. Quickly." Flynn handed her a hat. "Put this on, tuck your hair up." They slipped out the back door just as pounding began on the front. Crouching low, they made their way to the barn, where Flynn quickly saddled 2 horses. "Can you ride?" he asked. "Since I was a child," Zara assured him. "Good. We're going to the north pasture. Stay close to me, and if I tell you to run, you ride as hard as you can toward those mountains." He pointed to the distant peaks. They mounted up and rode out the back of the barn, keeping the building between them and the house as long as possible. Zara heard shouting behind them but didn't look back, focusing instead on following Flynn's lead as they galloped across the open grassland. They didn't stop until they reached a stand of trees near a small creek. Flynn dismounted and helped Zara down, then led the horses to water. "We'll stay here until they give up searching the ranch," Flynn said. "Shouldn't be more than a few hours." "I'm so sorry for bringing this trouble to your door," Zara said, sinking down onto a fallen log. "You've only just settled here and now you're hiding in your own pasture because of me." Flynn shook his head. "Don't apologize, I made my choice when I offered you shelter." "Why did you?" Zara asked. "Truly, you don't know me, I could be anyone, done anything." Flynn sat beside her on the log, leaving a respectful distance between them. "When I was 16, my sister was promised to a man she didn't love, a man who had power in our town. She ran away the night before the wedding." His voice grew quiet. "They found her 3 days later. She'd fallen from a cliff trying to make her way through the mountains alone." "Oh, Flynn," Zara breathed, "I'm so sorry." "I couldn't save her then," he said simply, "but I can help you now." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the horses drink and the leaves rustle overhead. "Tell me about your dreams," Flynn said suddenly. "Before all this, what did you want for your life?" Zara considered the question. "I wanted to teach. I love books, learning. Our town had a school teacher once, a woman who came from back east. She taught me to love poetry and history. I thought perhaps someday." "Why not someday?" Flynn asked. "Silverton Creek must need a teacher. Women don't often get to choose their own paths," Zara said with a sad smile. "Maybe they should," Flynn replied. "My mother always said the world would be better if women had more say in how it was run." "Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was," Flynn grinned. "Pa used to say she was smarter than the governor and twice as fair." By midday, they cautiously made their way back to the ranch. The search party had moved on, leaving behind trampled flower beds and a door that hung crooked on its hinges. "They were thorough," Flynn observed grimly as they surveyed the damage. "They won't give up easily," Zara warned. "Especially not Blackstone. He's not used to being denied anything he wants." "Then we'll have to be smarter than them," Flynn said. "For now, let's get this place back in order." Working together, they straightened the house. Zara swept while Flynn fixed the door, and by sunset, there was little evidence of the intrusion save for the disturbed garden. "You're good at this," Flynn commented as Zara prepared a simple stew from the provisions in his pantry. "Housekeeping, I mean." "My mother taught me well," Zara said, stirring the pot. "Though I suspect your idea of a housekeeper involves more than just cooking and cleaning." "I won't ask you to do anything beyond your strength," Flynn assured her. "But yes, ranch work is never done. There's always something that needs tending." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Zara said. "I'd rather earn my keep honestly than be kept in luxury as someone's possession." Flynn's eyes lingered on her face. "You're a remarkable woman, Zara Lockhart." Heat rose to Zara's cheeks and she turned back to the stew. "The food's ready," she said, changing the subject. "I hope it's edible. I've never cooked over an open hearth before." The stew was simple but tasty, and they ate in companionable silence. After dinner, Flynn brought out a deck of cards and they played a few hands of poker, using matchsticks as betting pieces. Zara won most of them. "You play too well for a preacher's daughter," Flynn teased. "My father's the town banker, not a preacher," Zara corrected him. "And he taught me cards before he taught me my letters, said a sharp mind for numbers would serve me well." She smiled ruefully. "Though I doubt this is what he had in mind." Days passed, settling into a routine. Flynn taught Zara about ranch work, how to mend fences, care for the small herd of cattle he was building, tend the vegetable garden that had been sadly neglected. In return, she kept the house, cooked meals that improved with practice, and in the evenings, read aloud from the small collection of books Flynn owned. They were careful. Zara never went to town, and Flynn did all the trading, bringing back supplies and news. The search for the runaway bride continued, with Blackstone offering a substantial reward for information. Zara's parents had been questioned extensively, but they genuinely didn't know where she had gone. "Your mother is holding up well," Flynn reported after one trip to town. "She told Blackstone to his face that perhaps if he'd courted you properly instead of buying you, you might not have fled." Zara laughed despite herself. "That sounds like Mother. She's always been braver than I am." "I don't know about that," Flynn said, his gaze warm. "Takes a special kind of courage to choose freedom over security." As spring turned to summer, Zara found herself watching Flynn when he wasn't looking. The way the sun brought out auburn highlights in his brown hair. How his hands, calloused from work, could be surprisingly gentle when treating an injured calf. The sound of his laughter when she told him stories from her childhood. One hot afternoon, they were working in the garden when Flynn straightened up, wiping sweat from his brow. "We need more hands," he said. "The herd's growing and there's too much work for just the two of us." "Are you saying you want me to leave?" Zara asked, her heart suddenly racing. "What? No." Flynn looked genuinely shocked at the suggestion. "I meant we should hire help, a ranch hand or two." Oh, relief flooded through her. "But wouldn't that be risky? For me, I mean," Flynn considered this, "we'd have to be careful who we hired, someone from outside the area who doesn't know about Silverton Creek's runaway bride." He looked at her thoughtfully. Or what? "Or we could give them a different story entirely, one that wouldn't raise questions about why you're here." Zara waited, curious. "We could tell them you're my wife." The word hung in the air between them. Wife. Zara's cheeks flushed hot and she looked down at the carrots she'd been weeding. "That would certainly explain my presence," she said carefully, not meeting his eyes. "A practical solution." "Practical," Flynn repeated, and something in his voice made her look up. His expression was unreadable. "Yes, that's one way to put it." That evening, the air between them was charged with unspoken words. They ate in silence, Flynn staring into his plate as if it held answers to questions he hadn't asked. After dinner, Zara stood to clear the dishes. Flynn caught her wrist gently as she reached for his plate. "Zara," he said, his voice low. "What I said earlier about pretending to be married, I need you to know something." She waited, her pulse quickening. "It wouldn't be just pretending for me," Flynn said quietly. "These past months working alongside you, sharing this home. I've come to care for you, more than I should, perhaps." Zara's breath caught in her throat. "Flynn, you don't need to say anything," he hurried on. "I know you came here seeking refuge, not romance. I won't press you or make you uncomfortable. But I wanted you to know the truth before we decided anything about hiring help." Zara sat back down, studying his face. The honesty there, the vulnerability. "I've been running from one man's claim on me," she said slowly. "I didn't expect to find myself drawn to another." Hope flickered in Flynn's eyes. "Drawn to? These months with you have been the freest I've ever felt," Zara admitted. "Not despite your presence, but because of it. You've never once made me feel like a possession or an obligation. You've treated me as an equal, valued my thoughts, my work." "Because you are valuable," Flynn said simply. "Everything about you." Zara reached across the table and took his hand. "I care for you too, Flynn. I didn't plan it, but there it is." Flynn's fingers tightened around hers. "I don't want to rush you." "After everything you've been through, you've never rushed me," Zara assured him. "You've given me time and space to find my own way, and my way has led to you." The next morning, Flynn rode into town alone, returning with supplies and more news. Blackstone had finally called off the search, declaring that no bride was worth this much trouble. Zara's parents were managing, though her father's business had suffered from Blackstone's withdrawal of investments. "And I brought something else," Flynn said, reaching into his saddlebag. He pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper. "For you." Curious, Zara unwrapped it to find a book of poetry. "Elizabeth Barrett Browning," she read from the cover. "You mentioned once that you loved her work," Flynn said, almost shyly. "The general store had this copy." Zara ran her fingers over the embossed leather cover. "This is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me." "There's something else," Flynn said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a simple gold band. I know we talked about pretending to be married for practical reasons, but I'm asking you now for real reasons. He took a deep breath. I love you, Zara Lockhart. These months together have shown me what a true partnership can be. I don't want to pretend to be your husband. I want to be your husband if you'll have me. Zara looked from the ring to Flynn's earnest face, tears welling in her eyes. Are you certain? You could have any woman, one without complications, without a past. I don't want any woman, Flynn said firmly. I want you, complications and all. Your past is part of what made you the woman I love. Zara held out her trembling left hand. Then yes, Flynn Harding, I will marry you. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms. Their first kiss was tender, a promise sealed with the touch of lips. 2 weeks later, they rode together to a town 20 miles away, where no one knew them. A small church stood on the town square, its white steeple reaching toward the blue Colorado sky. The minister, a kindly older man, asked few questions beyond whether they were of age and marrying of their own free will. I am, Zara said firmly, wearing a simple blue dress Flynn had bought for the occasion, with all my heart. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Flynn kissed her as if sealing a vow deeper than words could express. They signed the marriage certificate with steady hands, Flynn and Zara Harding, and rode back to their ranch as the sun set behind the mountains. That night, as they lay together for the first time as husband and wife, Zara traced the contours of Flynn's face in the moonlight streaming through the window. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. Taking in a stranger that day, risking everything for me. Flynn captured her hand and kissed her palm. Never, not for a single moment. Finding you crying in that loft was the best thing that ever happened to me. When you climbed up those ladder rungs, Zara said, I thought my life was over. I never imagined it was just beginning. I promised to keep you safe that day, Flynn murmured against her skin. Now I promise you forever. Forever, Zara echoed, pulling him closer. I like the sound of that. Summer faded into autumn, and with their combined savings, they hired 2 ranch hands brothers from Wyoming who asked no questions about the young couple's history. The ranch flourished under their care, the cattle herd growing, the fields yielding good harvests. One crisp October morning, Zara received a letter forwarded through the town's general store. The handwriting was her mother's. She wants to see me, Zara told Flynn after reading it. She says Father has finally accepted that I won't be coming back to marry Blackstone. She wants to meet the man I chose instead. Flynn looked concerned. Is it safe? Blackstone might still bear a grudge. Mother says he's engaged to a widow from Denver now, Zara said. And besides, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not running away this time. I'm coming back on my own terms as your wife. The following Sunday, they rode into Silverton Creek together. Heads turned as they made their way down the main street. Zara held her head high, her hand firmly in Flynn's. Her parents' house looked smaller than she remembered. Her mother flung open the door before they had even dismounted, rushing down the path with tears streaming down her face. My girl, she sobbed, embracing Zara tightly. My brave, foolish, wonderful girl. Zara's father emerged more slowly, his face a mixture of relief and lingering anger. But when he saw how his daughter looked at the tall man beside her, something in his expression softened. So you're the man who stole my daughter, he said gruffly, extending his hand to Flynn. No, sir, Flynn replied, shaking the offered hand firmly. I'm the man who was blessed when she found her way to me. The tension in the air eased. They were invited inside, where over a meal that her mother had spent days preparing, Zara and Flynn told their story, an edited version that emphasized their growing friendship and eventual love, glossing over the initial deception and hiding. You could have told us you were safe, her father said, a hint of accusation in his tone. I wasn't sure I was safe, Zara admitted. Not at first, and I couldn't risk Blackstone following me to Flynn's door. Harold was quite upset, her mother said. But I think his pride was wounded more than his heart. Still, it was a difficult time. She looked at Flynn appraisingly. But seeing you now with a good man who clearly adores you, I understand why you ran. I'm sorry for the pain I caused, Zara said sincerely. But I'm not sorry for the choice I made. Her father cleared his throat. Well, what's done is done, and I suppose I should be grateful that my daughter has a husband who can provide for her properly. We provide for each other, father, Zara corrected him gently. The ranch is as much mine as Flynn's. We're partners in everything. Her father looked startled, then thoughtful. He glanced at his wife, who was smiling knowingly. Is that so? Well, I suppose times are changing. As they prepared to leave, her mother pressed a small package into Zara's hands. A late wedding present, she explained, and perhaps something for the future. Later, back at their ranch, Zara unwrapped the gift to find a tiny knitted blanket in soft yellow wool. She looked up at Flynn, her eyes wide. Do you think she knows? Zara whispered, her hand instinctively going to her stomach, where for 2 months now a secret had been growing. Flynn placed his hand over hers, his face alight with wonder. Mothers have a way of knowing these things, I've heard. Are you still happy? Zara asked. With everything changing so quickly? Flynn pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke of enduring love. Every change has brought us closer, he murmured. Every day makes me more certain that climbing up to that hayloft was the best decision I ever made. Spring came again, bringing with it new life. Flynn paced outside the bedroom door while the midwife attended to Zara, his face etched with worry at each cry that escaped from behind the closed door. When at last the midwife emerged, her tired face broke into a smile. You have a daughter, Mr. Harding, a beautiful, strong, lunged daughter. Flynn entered the room with reverent steps. Zara lay propped against pillows, her face glowing despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. In her arms, wrapped in the yellow blanket her mother had knitted, was a tiny bundle with a shock of dark hair. Come meet your daughter, Zara said softly. Elizabeth Faith Harding. Flynn sat carefully on the edge of the bed, reaching out with trembling fingers to touch the baby's velvet cheek. She's perfect, he whispered, just like her mother. I thought we were going to lose her, Zara admitted, her voice catching, when the labor went on so long. But you didn't, Flynn said fiercely. You're both here, both safe. He leaned forward to kiss her forehead. You're the strongest person I've ever known, Zara Harding. The baby made a small sound, her tiny fist escaping the blanket. Flynn offered his finger and Elizabeth grasped it with surprising strength. She knows her father, Zara said, smiling through her tears. And she'll always know how much she's loved, Flynn promised. How much you both are loved, now and forever. Outside the window, the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the room with golden light. On the ranch that had become their sanctuary, their home, their future, a new chapter was beginning. A family built not on obligation or arrangement, but on choice, respect, and a love that had begun with a runaway bride, a compassionate cowboy, and a promise made in a hayloft that had indeed lasted forever.